Hey, what's up, my winners? This is John with BCCS Sports coming to you. Just wanted to go over a couple topics, Wagering 101 for beginners. I know there's a lot of stuff out there that people look at and say, well, what does this mean? What's that mean? What goes into all of it? And it's such a long list of things, and, we could talk hours about it and what goes into it, but I just wanted to go over a couple different terminologies with examples so that you guys know what's being talked about and when they're talking about it. So one is, a wager, obviously. That's a bet that's going to be placed at a sports book, for your ticket that you have, whether it's your online, it's your DraftKings, your FanDuel, or, on your betting app, Barstool, Bet Rivers, anything like that, or if you go into your local retail location. All right, another thing that people wonder about, say, hey, well, when people always refer to the hook, what's the hook? The hook is where the half point shows up in any spread, right? So, if the line's -3, right, for the Chiefs Bengals, that means it can fall straight on the number, which would be a push, which nobody gets paid. When they refer to it as the hook, that means there's a half involved. So that's, Bengals catching 2.5. Now it might be 3.5, right? A lot of times the book will have it be on. They like to throw the hook in there because now you got good two-way action, and the book gets what they really want, which is juice, which is the commission they get off each bet. So if you don't buy any points, typically juice is going to be -110, -115 on 100. What that means is if you lose the bet, you just don't lose 100, you lose 110 because you got to lay 110 to win 100. So that's what they're referring to as the hook. Okay, a lot of times you'll hear guys say, hey, I got beat by the hook. I had them plus 17.5. They lost by 18, right? You'll have a lot of people that are plus 2.5. Game will land on 3 and beat them. That's why a lot of people say, well, John, you typically buy a lot of points. Typically, I do buy a lot of half points, especially in NFL, not so much college, and not so much in college hoops, because it really doesn't matter. NFL's a little different. There's key numbers I look for. Again, my key numbers are different from other people's, right? I can only go off what makes me successful, but 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11, those are very key for me, right? When you're looking at a game in the betting rotation, when people refer to the betting rotation, they're talking about the numbers in the rotation. So if you look beside each game, it'll have numbers 301 Kansas City Chiefs versus 302 Cincinnati Bengals. The reason that is because most seasoned people don't go to the win and say, hey, I want the Bengals plus 3.5. They'll say, I want 322 plus 3.5, right? So that's what your betting rotation and your numbers are. The minus or plus, obviously, if there's a minus in front of the number, that's the team that's favored. Again, reverting back to the Chiefs-Bengals, hey, Chiefs -2.5, that means they're the favorite. If there's a plus, all right, Bengals plus 2.5, they're the dog. What are people talking about when they refer to the handle? When they refer to the handle, that's the amount of money that is wagered on the game. So something that's very striking is you have to be able to set and digress, okay, what's the difference between the ticket count and the handle? Typically, your ticket count, which is the amount of tickets bet on a single game, is going to reflect the same as the handle, the amount of money bet on that side during the game. However, a good thing to look for is when those numbers are lopsided. If the ticket count favors one team, but the handle favors the other, a light should go off. Typically, that shows, okay, public's betting a lot on one side, but your sharps, which considered your really sharp bettors, your pro bettors, and that's what you'll refer to, pros versus Joes. Pros is your pro bettors. They're betting every day. They're doing it for a living for the most part. Your average Joe is your guy going to work that's betting his 50, 100. If he gets really crazy, 500 or $1,000 at DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever, MGM. So you really want to look at those as, okay, there's a difference here. Why is there a difference? And you want to make sure you're on the right side. Again, if all else fails, you're going to be really successful in gambling if you land on the side of the house. Because like I tell people all the time, they don't build casinos in Vegas and they don't legalize sports gambling and build all these sports books, off free, off taking loans out. All right. It's off of people losing, right? The book wins, and the book wins is because They get the competitive advantage because your average Joe doesn't know what they're looking at. When a line is set, it's set by what's called the odds makers, okay? A lot goes into that. Power rankings goes into it. A lot of sports books will take, okay, the power ranking for this team is a 1. This one's an 8. So you're going to subtract, from the higher number. Okay, so now the spread should be -7. Then they factor in home field, which could be anywhere from 2.5 to 3. They could factor in weather, injuries, whatever, and then move that line around where they think the public would put it at, or opposite of where they want the line to be, where they think they can get good two-way action. Because remember, Vegas's biggest thing is they want it to fall two-way action, okay? Because if it's a 50-50 split, no matter how the game lands, they make a ton just off the juice, right? And the juice being that -110, -115, they're making $10, $15 off every bet regardless of what the line falls on. If you have a line that's, 2.5 and it goes to 3.5 and there's no 3, well, now they're really in good shape if it lands on 3 because now they get the two-way juice from both sides, okay? Between handle and ticket count, you got to be really careful at what you're looking at there. And then again, with the odds makers, they're making those lines so they can get the advantage. So again, power rankings, what you're looking at. A lot of people look at sports gambling as X and O's because that's what they look at as a true sports fan. Sports betting has very, very little to do with X's and O's. I know that's a crazy statement, but it's about data and numbers. There's some people that have systems, they'll plug numbers in and get 500 different outcomes, right? And then that's how they make their bets. Me, I do it a little different. What I've done has worked for me. 13 years in a row of 150 games over 500, setting on 202 right now on December 6th since April 1st in all sports. So, everybody has their different recipe to get there. It's just a matter of how many more winners can you pick than losers, because that's what it's all about. Action, that's a bet or a wager that you have placed on a game. So if you hear somebody say, hey, I got action on that, that means they have money that's actually bet on that game that they have. The chalk, if you hear, hey, man, a lot of chalk's covering, chalk is the favorites, all right? So chalk is favorites. If they say, hey, we're taking the points, that means you're taking the underdog. Taking the points means, okay, I'm taking the dog. So I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals plus 2.5, and I'm betting that they're either going to win the game or they're not going to lose by more than 2. So that would be taking the points with the underdog. Another thing you hear a lot of people talk about is steam, okay? I'm not a big believer in steam. Steam is a quick change in a line due to heavy wagering. All right. So case in point, Chargers Raiders this past week. Chargers opened up as a 2.5 point favorite. When the line closed, the Raiders were a 2.5 point favorite. A lot of money came in on the Raiders. Okay. So you have to look at that and say same thing with the Chiefs and the Bengals. The line was 2.5. They took some sharp money, goes down to 1.5. Now the public starts betting it back, gets back 2.5. 3 in some places, right? I bought the point to plus 3.5 just to be safe. Did I lay $1.45? I did, but it turned out not to matter because the Bengals won outright. But steam is a very, very tricky thing. A lot of people believe in it and follow it, but my issue is you never know where the steam's coming from. Right? Sometimes you can get a good read on it, but I still like to go over my data, my research, and what does the book need, right? I think that's really important when you look at, what do the sports books need? They don't beat up the public every week. The public has some really good weeks. This past week in the NFL, public did pretty good. Public tends to go with favorites, right? That doesn't mean you should bet the dog in every single game. I think for the NFL season right now, the dogs are covering like 58%, right? So there's still an art and a balance of what favorites you're going to play and what dogs you're going to play. But be very careful with steam because, typically when everybody hops on the same choo-choo of steam, it's not good to be on the same bus with everybody else. That typically never ends well, right? Another thing you hear about is when people are putting amounts to their bets, right? So somebody might say, hey, I got $1 or $1 on it. That means they have a $100 bet. Some people might say, hey, it's a nickel play for me. Nickel means, all right, they have 500. The more typical one you'll hear, especially in Vegas or with some of your bigger bettors or some of your pros, will be a dime play. Dime play is 1,000. These are all different terminologies that you'll hear, and now you'll know what they mean. For me, as far as, dollar, nickel, dime, I don't really pay much attention to that. My rule of thumb has always been, okay, What can you bet and sustain 20 losses, right? And as soon as you get that up, now you up your bet, and it's stair step. That's the only way that, I mean, unless you just got an indisposable amount of income, which I know very few people that have that, right? Because everybody loves money and loves making money. I think it's really important that you stay disciplined and you stair step your bets. If you're going to be successful in gambling long term, discipline, I mean, handicapping's important. You got to pick winners, right? Nobody picks winners like I do, but you got to pick winners, a whole lot more of them than losers, to make money. But the other thing is, there's a lot of people out there that can pick games and know stats and know all that, and they still can't make any money because their discipline's all over the place. You really got to stair step your bets, right? So case in point example would be, if I'm a $50 bettor, I'm looking at, okay, I need in my mind $1,000 bankroll. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to have it, but that's in your mind, okay? I can sustain 20 losses of betting $50 a game, all right? Now, when can I go to 75, John? Well, you can go to 75 when you turn that 1,000 into 1,600. Okay. When can I go to 100 a game? Well, when you get it bumped to 2,000. All right. When can I go to 150? Well, when you get it bumped up to 2,600. Well, when can I go to, 200? Well, you can go to 200 when you get to 4,000, right? So you got to make sure you stair step it correctly so that you don't get beat up, because it does no good to have 8 good weeks and all of a sudden you up your betting amount, right? And as soon as you up that betting amount, you get crushed. So now, you might be 13 games over 500, but you made no money because the weekend you went 0-5 is the weekend that you upped all your bets from $100 to $1,000. So you can't just jump like that. You can't throw too much on one game. So many things can happen. You take Purdue plus 17.5 I had this week, LSU plus the 18, which ended up being a stinker because of it all went back to that blocked field goal, ran back for a touchdown. So many things can happen in sports that no matter how spot on your handicapping is, things just happen, right? And so you can't just step out there and bet one game bigger than the rest. You may win a couple, but over the long haul, you're going to get beat up and you're not going to be able to stay in the game, right? So discipline is very, very important. That's Betting 101 for beginners. We'll have more to come. bccssports.com. Go sign up for our package right now. 202 games over since April 1st. 150 games minimum over 500. From April 1st through March 31st is how I run my calendar. I've did it year after year. I've did it with consistency, and I've did it better than anybody else. And the other thing that I'm better at than more than anybody else is being transparent and being real. So go to the website, sign up this bowl season, sign up for the rest of the NFL, the playoffs. We got college basketball, which is my best sport, the NHL, NBA, which we're still hanging out there at 8-5, and hop on board and make yourself some money. Love you, my winners.